Greetings to students at large, particularly to those listening to this audio. I am here once again to do another question on cost and management accounting, and the name of the exercise is BUMBULO Miling PTY LTD, which is a private company. And preferable, I start with the requirements before I read the information that is provided to me. Now, under the requirements, number A, I am required to briefly discuss, take note the discussion, the characteristics, classification, and the treatment of product chaff in the management accounting records of BUMBULO Miling PTY LTD. So there is one product that need to be characterized or classified, and this product is product chaff. So this is likely to be a byproduct when you are required to classify and characterize a product. It's likely to be a byproduct. So I'm sure that we'll be dealing with the joint cost in this exercise. Number B, we are to prepare the actual direct costing income statement of BUMBULO Miling LTD for the month end 31st of May 2017. Joint costs are apportioned to joint product on the basis of the net realizable value method, which is NRV, where we say sales value minus further processing cost. Then that will give us the net realizable value that will be used to allocate our joint cost between the products that are given. The total column is required. Then we are to show all the workings, and that is out of 20 marks. That is the major part of this question, joint cost. Number C, we are to calculate the fixed manufacturing overheads per unit. Take note, for the cow fat, which is CF, poultry fat, which is PF, and bird fat, which is BF, using the activity-based costing system. So now there is also an ABC element in this question that we'll be doing. And if you just scan randomly, we can see that this is part of ABC. We can see that there is activity driver. So it is likely that here we are focusing on the activity-based costing and also going down. So this will definitely be ABC. So that means the first two questions, they will not be connected with this part of the question. However, let us go and read from the beginning so that we attempt to answer the first part of the question. It says BUMBULO Miling PTY LTD, which is BUMBULO, is a maize milling company in the Rustenburg area of the Northwest Province. The company is 100% owned by the BUMBULO Family Trust, established by Mr. Farmer Brown, a sole representative of the trust on BUMBULO's management team. The milling site is well situated at the company as the company can easily access maize corn from the farming community of both Gauteng and the Northwest provinces. The company uses the direct costing method for inventory valuation. Be mindful of that, it is highlighted bold. The company uses the direct costing method for inventory valuation. And I want to link that with the question number 2 that was required of us. We were required to prepare the actual direct income statement. Take note, direct income statement. Meaning when we do this income statement, we need to say sales minus all the variable cost. Then after we get to the contribution, then we say contribution minus fixed cost. That will give us the net profit for the period. So that will be the direct income statement. The milling site, has a maximum processing capacity of 1,000 tons. So now they process 1,000 tons of maize corn per month. a miller is fully responsible, or a miler is fully responsible for the entire milling site operation. At the site, maize corn is delivered by the farmers, where it is weighted, tested for moisture, and then stored in silos. Water is then added at the beginning of the milling process to separate the corn into different products. The milling process yields three separate identical products, which is maize, corn, chop, and chaff. And they say the outer layer of the corn. And the minute it is the outer layer of the corn, it is likely to be what we call a byproduct. The third product, which is chaff, also again remember in the requirements we were required to characterize and classify the treatment of product chaff. And we can see that it is from the outer layer of the corn, therefore now it is likely to be a byproduct. Then it says the actual results for the month ended 31st of May 2017 were given to us below. A total of 800 tons of maize corn were processed at the plant. So now this is their total output, total production. The actual yield from these tons were maize bean of 60%, chop of 35%, and chaff of 5%. And we can see that chaff is a very small portion. And the minute it is a very small product or output, then it's likely also to be classified as a byproduct. There is a small number of units that are processed from the chaff product. It is very, very immaterial. Then now we proceed to classify now, or to divide the total 800 units that were processed into 60%, which is maize bean, 35% chop, then after 5% is given to us as chaff. So now let us have all the three products, number of units that were processed. Then we say units processed, because these are the units that were processed. Then we have the first one as maize bean, and maize bean will be 800 units times this by 65%. Let me confirm that. Okay, 60% and 35%. We time this by 60% to determine how many units were manufactured from maize bean. 800 units that were processed, times this by 60%, it means 480 units of maize corn were processed out of the 800. Then the second one, or the second product, which is 35%, will be chop, and they say chop was 35%. Then we say chop will be 800 units, times that by 35%. Then after that will give us the total units, 800 times that by 35%. It will give us 280 units of chop that were processed. Then we go to the last product, which is chaff, and chaff will be 800 times by 5%, which is the outer layer of the maize corn. Therefore, now we multiply this by 5%. It will give us 5% of 800, which will be 800 times this by 5%. It gives us only 40 units per ton. 40 units. So now this will be the number of units that were processed, or the number of tons 480 units of ton. So this will be in ton. Then after now we proceed to the next part of the question. They said to us that the actual results, that will be tons, was 60 tons and 40 tons. So now we have identified the number of units that were processed for each of the products. Then after it says the actual cost incurred in the milling process were as follows. Please be mindful that the milling process is when we are processing all the three products, where we are still processing the maize bean, we are still processing the chop, and we are still processing the chaff with the double F. So now meaning these are the costs that we incur jointly, or meaning the cost that we incur combined. And I also want to go back to the previous paragraph where it said the milling site has a maximum processing capacity of 1,000 tons of maize corn per month. So that is the capacity, not what the company is actually manufacturing. So that is what they can manufacture up to a maximum. But they only manufactured 800 tons of maize corn. So now I just want to bring you clarity. Why do we not multiply by 1,000, but we only multiply by 800? Because 800 is the actual processed maize corn, but 1,000 is what they can process, the maximum capacity. So that means they are not operating at full capacity, but they are operating at 80% capacity, and which is another topic. So now we proceed to say the actual costs that were incurred. So now these are the costs that were incurred jointly, and we normally call this joint cost. The costs that were incurred to process all the three products, which is the maize bean, the chop, and the chaff. So now these are the joint cost, and we are looking for the joint cost. And the joint costs are only variable cost. They don't take into account the fixed cost that you see here at the bottom. So now joint cost will only be those costs that are variable. So now we need to calculate our joint cost in total, which is 4,900, 180 rand, 150, 60, and 100 rand. And very importantly, all these costs are in rand per ton. So now we don't have to do any conversion. So we need to calculate the joint cost, meaning the cost that were incurred jointly to manufacture or to process the three products. So now the first one will be, as it is given to us, the maize corn price per ton, maize corn price and delivery cost. After it will be maize corn or maize corn or maize price per ton, and our maize price is 4,900. Times this by 800 units. Then we have the delivery cost, and the cost of delivery is given to us as 100 rand. Delivery cost is 100 rand, times this by 800. The next price is, or the next cost is offloading and pre-cleaning cost. Offloading and pre-cleaning cost, meaning the cost that we incur to offload the maize corn. Offloading and cleaning cost, and offloading and cleaning cost is 80 rand times this by 800 units that were processed for all the three products. Then the next cost that we have incurred jointly is water and electricity. Remember, they said water is added at the beginning of the process. I think there was something that said before. Water and electricity cost is 150. This will be water plus electricity, which is 150 rand per ton, times this by 800. Then after we have another cost, which is processing and grinding cost. Processing and grinding cost for 60 rand. Processing and grinding cost. And processing and grinding cost, as I said, that it is an amount of 60 rand times by 800. And the last one, it is direct labor cost. Last one is direct labor cost. And our direct labor cost is given to us. Everything is given easy for this part of the question. It is 100 rand per ton. So it will be 100 times this by 800. So now we are establishing our joint cost. We are establishing our joint cost. So let us do the calculation of the joint cost. 4,900 times by 800. And this gives us 3,920,000 rands. Then after we have 100 times this by 800 times by 800, it gives us 80,000. Then after we have 80 times this by 800, which is 64,000. Remember, we're still calculating our joint cost that we incurred jointly to manufacture the three products. Then we have 120,000 rands. Then we have 60 times by 800, which is 48,000. Then after we have 100 times by 800, and this will obviously give us 80,000. So now we have the total of the joint cost. We have the total of the joint cost. Then 80,000 times by 2, because there are two 80,000s, plus 48,000, plus 120,000, plus 64,000, plus 3,920,000. This gives us a total of 4,312,000. And this is our total joint cost. So now costs that we incurred together to process the maize corn, the maize, the chaff and the chaff came up to 4,312,000 rands. So now let us proceed on that same note. Very important to identify your joint cost and be able to calculate all your joint costs. In this case, it was very easy. You could have just taken the total of all of them and you multiply this by the number of units that were processed. And in this case, we only processed 800 units, although the maximum capacity is 1,000 units. And now we are given our fixed overheads and our fixed selling cost. Then let us proceed to the next information. It says to us that under additional information, the maize bean is further grinded. Take note, it is further grinded. So now this is the maize bean that we are talking about. So this becomes what you call further processing cost, meaning after we have incurred all these costs jointly to process the maize corn, so now there were other costs that were incurred to process it into maize bean, into chop, and into chaff. So now these are what we call further processing cost. So now let me record further processing cost for the maize bean. Maize bean, further processing cost. Further processing cost. So now these are further processing cost for the maize bean. Then let us check which of those further processing costs are there for us. We are told that there is grinding, meaning there is cost that we incur further to grind the maize meal at a cost of 80 Rand per ton. So now remember, we have how many number of units for the maize bean? We only have 480 maize bean that were processed. Remember, when we calculated the number of units, we identified that we processed 480 units of the maize bean. So now when we're calculating further processing cost, which is the grinding part of the maize bean, we multiply by the number of units that were processed. Therefore now we have what we call grinding. The grinding cost to which is 80 Rand, times this by 480. It will give us the total. We have 80 times by 480, and this gives us 38,400, which is further processing cost by the name grinding, meaning we have to grind the maize bean to process it further. Then after we go to the next part of further processing cost, and it says vitamins are also added, meaning in this further processing cost there are also vitamins that are added. So now we also need to take into account the cost of vitamins that are added to process further the maize bean. So vitamins are added into the grinding process. Each ton of the maize meal requires 200 grams. So take note of that. They say each ton, meaning 1 ton is equal to 200 grams. That's what they are telling us. Then the question, how much is the cost? 200 grams of vitamins at a cost of 1 Rand per gram. So now it's cost of 1 Rand per gram, not per ton. Remember, if the 1 Rand was per ton, therefore now we'll have to convert our grams into ton. But in this case, there is no necessity. So we times here by 1 Rand, then after we times by the number of units that were processed, which is 480. That will give us the vitamins, which is the further processing cost of the maize bean. Then after, let us add the vitamins. Our vitamins, it is 1 Rand, times that by 200 grams per ton. The question, how many tons were processed? We processed 480 tons. So we said 1 Rand times by 200 grams. And it is 200 grams of vitamins that are required by 1 ton. Therefore now we times that by the number of tons, which is 480 tons that were processed. Then that will be 1 times 200 times by 480, and this gives us 96,000 rands as the vitamin cost, as the further processing cost. So now we have added that as the further processing cost. Then let us proceed to the next one. It says the added vitamin grams do not increase the weight of the ton of the maize meal. Okay, they just gave us further information that vitamins, they don't change the weight. The maize meal is packed at a cost of 20 Rand per ton. So there is a cost that we incur further. After these products have been processed jointly, there is another cost that we incur further in order to package the product, which is packed at a cost, meaning this is the packaging cost of 20 Rand per ton. So now we also need to take this into account because it is the cost that we incur to process this maize bean further. It's 20 Rand times by the number of tons that were processed. Therefore now it will be 20 tons by 480. 480 tons times by 20 Rand, it gives us 9,600 rands. So now this will be the packing cost. Remember, we are calculating the further processing cost. Then after it says the selling price per ton of maize is 8,900. So let us hold that. I will use it a bit later. Very important to take note of it. Because we'll need the selling price also when we're calculating our net realizable value, because we're instructed to split our joint cost using the net realizable value method. So now we have taken this into account, then we must go to the next step. It says, and the related selling and administration cost is 15 Rand per ton. So there is selling cost. So now this is the selling cost. So let us include selling plus administration cost. And selling and administration cost, they said, is 15 Rand per ton, and we processed 480 ton of the maize bean. So it will be 15 times this by 480, and it gives us an amount of 7,200 rands. I think this paragraph is complete from this stage. I suppose it will be done, because the next column or the next paragraph says, at the moment, chop does not undergo any further processing. So now, meaning we are now under the product chop, but I want to complete the maize bean first. So now the further processing cost of the maize bean will be the total of all the costs that I have just calculated. So 7,200 plus 9,600 plus 96,000 plus 38,400. This gives me a total of 151,200. This is further processing cost of the maize bean. Further processing cost of the maize bean. So now we must go to the next product. And the next product is product chop, where they say at the moment, chop does not undergo any further processing. Chop is packed at a cost of 20 Rand. Now, I just want to clarify this part, because they say at the moment, chop does not undergo any further processing, meaning chop is not further processed. Let me just draw this for clarity purpose. We said in the beginning that these products are incurred jointly. Let me just draw a circle here. This is what we call joint cost. These are the costs that we incurred jointly, meaning we incurred the maize, the price to buy the maize, there was delivery cost of the maize corn, there was offloading cost, and all those costs were added there. We incurred them in order to manufacture the three products, which is the maize bean, the chop, and the chaff. And these were the joint cost. So now after we have incurred all these costs, these three products, another one was further processed to become the maize bean. Another one was further processed. Another one was not further processed. But although it was not further processed, in this case, remember, we are referring to the chop. They say chop is not further processed. However, when it comes to the maize bean, they said maize bean is further grinded into maize meal. Take note of that. We grinded the maize bean into becoming the maize meal. So now, meaning the first one was the processing further of the maize bean into becoming the maize meal. But when it comes to chop, they say chop is not further processed. But after we split it, this is the point that we call the split off point, where now the joint products are splitted into 3 different products. But they are saying to us, chop is not further processed, but there is a cost that we incur after it was splitted, meaning after it was separated from the maize corn. And they say now it is not processed further, but they still tell us that chop is packed at 20 rand per ton. So now, though this is not further processed, but the 20 rand is a cost that is incurred further in order to package the product, not necessarily to process it further, but it will still be classified as a further processing cost, which is the packaging cost. So now let us go and we record that packaging cost and any other cost that was incurred after. So they are telling us that chop is not or does not undergo further processing cost, but they say the packaging cost is 20 rand per ton, meaning we need to package it, so that will be a further cost. But we are not processing the product, but we are packaging it further so that we can sell it to the customer. So now this will still be classified as a product chop, and under product chop we still have further processing cost because it needs to be packaged. Further processing cost, it is packaging cost, and the packaging cost, it is 20 rand times by the number of units that were processed for this product, which is 280 units of product chop were processed. So now we times this by 280, therefore we have 280 times this by 20 rand, so we get to 5,200 rands as the further processing cost, which is the cost that we incur to package the product, not necessary to process the real product. So now let us check again if which other cost that was incurred, if there is any. They say the entire chop production is usually sold to the external animal fed processor. The actual selling price per chop in May was 6,900. I want to take note of the selling price because we'll need that selling price. I want to underline that one red as I underlined the previous one with the red color. Then after it says, and its related selling and administration cost per ton is 15 rand. So now there is selling and administration cost, which happens after the product was incurred jointly, or after the product was processed further. So now we have our selling and administration cost. Selling plus admin cost. And they say it is 15 rand times this by 280. Remember, we still take this as a further processing cost. Why? Because this is cost that is incurred after the products was splitted. After the 3 products were splitted, these are the costs that were incurred further. So now we call them further processing cost. 4.2 plus 5,200, it gives us a total of we have 20 rand times by 280. Oh, this was 5,600, not 2,000, plus 4,200. This gives us a total of 9,800 rands. So now this is the further processing cost for the product chop. The cost that we incur to package it, we are not processing it further, but we are incurring the packaging cost after the joint cost. Then we go to the third product, which is chaff. They say chaff is also not processed any further. The company sells chaff to a local traditional chicken breeders at a selling price of 500 per ton. The company delivers chaff to these breeders at a cost of 100 Rand per ton. There are no other costs related to chaff incurred. So now, chaff, as I said to you, that this is a byproduct. So now, very important to note is that revenue generated from the sale of the byproduct must be used to reduce joint costs before they are allocated to the main products. Repeat that again. Revenue generated from the sale of the byproduct must be used to reduce joint costs before they are splitted to the main product, or before they are allocated to the main product. Remember, I said previously we have total joint cost which amounted to 4,312,000. So now, before this total of the joint cost is allocated to the two products, which are the maize meal, in this case no longer the maize bean, and the chop product, before we allocate that, we need to take the revenue from the sale of the byproduct. We reduce it from that 4,312,000. So now let us have our revenue, or the sale of the product called chaff. We have product chaff, then after we have the revenue from the sale of this product. And we are told that revenue from the sale of this product, we have the selling price of 500 per ton, and the selling cost, or the delivery cost in this case, which is the selling cost of 100 rands. So now we have to say sales minus the cost to sell. So it will be 500 minus 100, and this will give us an amount of 400. We times this by the number of units that were processed. And we know that we processed 40 units of product chaff. So now we have to multiply that by 40 to determine the revenue from the sale of this product. 40 times by 400 will give us 16,000 rands. Then after, now we will have to get what we call adjusted joint cost. Our adjusted joint cost will be the joint cost that were calculated as 4,312,000 minus 16,000 rands. So now let us go and recap. Remember, our joint costs were 4,312,000 minus the revenue from the sale of the byproduct, which is product chaff. So now this will give us the adjusted joint cost minus 4,312,000 rands. And this gives us 4,296,000 rands. And 4,296,000 rands is the joint cost that we have to allocate to our two products. And our two products are product maize meal and our product chop. So now from here, we have done all the necessary calculations. We still have to do the calculation with regard to the allocation of the joint cost, the adjusted joint cost. So now let us go to the requirements now, and we directly answer what we are required to answer. I was just doing the workings. Remember, I told you that this part of the question, the animal fed processing plant, is the activity-based costing, where we allocate the fixed cost. So now we were asked to discuss the characteristics, classification, and the treatment of product chaff in the management accounting records of BUMBULO Milling PTY LTD. So now I will first be doing that classification for you, and the characteristics of this product. As I already told you that this is a byproduct. So now I will just not write it down, but tell you what is required of this question. First of all, chaff emerges incidentally from production of maize, meal, and chop. So now that is the first point. Chaff emerges incidentally from the production of maize meal, and chop. Why am I saying that? Remember, they said that this product is the outer layer. If you still remember when it was clearly stated that it is the outer layer, and chaff the outer layer of the corn, so it emerges is an incidental product. That is bullet point number 1. Now, bullet point number 2 will say that the company's continuous operation is not dependent on the production of chaff, meaning the company can continue operating without being dependent in the production of product chaff. So that's another second bullet point. The third bullet point will be the fact that the sales revenue is relatively immaterial compared to the maize meal and chop. So now, because the sales revenue or sales value for this product is relatively small, so because of that, it is really a byproduct. The fourth bullet point will be the fact that chaff can be classified and treated as a byproduct in the management accounting records. So now, because of the 3 bullet point, therefore now this can be classified as a byproduct in the management account of this company. The last one, the proceeds, which is the one that we have done now. The proceeds or the revenue from the sale of the byproduct will be used to reduce joint cost before they are allocated to joint product. That will be the last bullet point. So I've covered all the 5 bullet points. So now I will go straight to number B. I will go straight to number B. Number B, I am required to do the income statement, to prepare the actual direct costing income statement. And before I do this, I first need to allocate the joint cost. I first need to allocate the joint cost using the net realizable value method. And net realizable value method says joint cost, it says sales revenue minus further processing cost. Then after, this will give us net realizable value method. So now we want to allocate our joint cost. Remember, this is our joint cost. And the question is, how do we allocate the joint cost? The instruction is that we must allocate using the net realizable value method. Then what is the net realizable value method? Net realizable value method, it says sales minus further processing cost. It says sales minus further processing cost. So now it means we need the sales for the 2 products, and we need the total further processing cost for the 2 products. Then after, this will give us what we call net realizable value amount. Then after we take the net realizable value, we use it as the base to allocate our adjusted joint cost. So now let us start with the 2 products, and we write our heading where we say maize meal. Then after, the second one will be the product by the name chop. Remember, we don't allocate joint cost to a byproduct because a byproduct is an incidental product, as I did mention that to you. So now our sales, remember I said that we have the total selling price for product maize meal, and the selling price was given as 8,900. So now it will be 8,900 times that by 480 units. 480 units is the number of units that were processed. So now this gives us a total of 4,272,000 rands. Then now the next one will be 6,900 times this by 280. If my memory still serves me, I'll just go and confirm it again. 1,932,000 rands. 1,932,000 rands. Yes, the selling price for the second product was 6,900. Remember, we are multiplying by the number of units that were processed, not the number of units that were sold. Even if we're given the number of units that were sold being less than what was processed, we'll still have to take what was processed, which is 480 and 280. Please be mindful of that. That is what they call hypothetical sales value, in other words. So now we have recorded the sales value. Then after, we have to say less further processing cost. Less further processing cost. And we already know that the further processing cost were calculated already. It was 151,200, just to confirm that. It was 151,000, yes. This was maize bean, which became maize meal, in other words, because we processed the maize bean into becoming maize meal. So this is maize meal further processing cost, which is 151,200. And we had 9,200 of the chop, which is further processing cost, 9,800 rands that we have already calculated. So now by deducting these two, this will give us what we call net realizable value. Let me say is equal to net realizable value. Sales minus further processing cost. So now just draw a line to clarify the workings. So this is our net realizable value. Let us do the calculation of that. 1,932,000 minus 9,800. And this gives us 1,922,000 rands. Then we have 4,272,000 minus 152,000 or 151,200, and this gives us 4,120,800. This is our net realizable value. So now we need to allocate our joint cost. Remember, our joint cost was an amount of 4,296,000. So now we are allocating that figure. And how are we allocating that figure? We are allocating using our net realizable value as the base of allocation. So now let us first get to the total of our net realizable value as the total amount for the two products. 4,120,800 plus 1,922,000, and this gives us a total of 6,042,800 rands. So now this is our total net realizable value. So now we need to allocate our joint cost to the two products, which is the maize meal. And when we allocate that, what do? We say net realizable value for each of the products, divide this by the total, then after we multiply. So we have the net realizable value for the maize, which is the maize meal. So what we do, we say net is 4,120,800. We divide this by the total, and the total is 6,042,800. And we multiply this by the total joint cost, and our joint cost is 4,296,000. If you want, could have said joint cost times and divide. So now this will be the allocation of joint cost to the product maize meal. We have the joint cost of 4,296,000 times this by 4,120,800 equals, divide that by 6,042,800. This gives us a total of 2,929,595. 510 is 2,929,595. Let me just recalculate to confirm the accuracy of this. We have 4,120,800 divide by 6,042,800. 6,042,800, and we times this by 4,296,000. Yes, it's 2,929,595. So now this is how the joint cost would have to be allocated. Just want to recalculate that because I added there to ensure the accuracy of my figures. We have 4,120,800 plus 1,922,000. Yes, 6,042,800. So now that will be the allocation of the joint cost to the first product. Then we allocate our joint cost to the second product chop, and we do the same thing. We take the amount of the joint cost, which is 4,296,000. We have 4,296,000. We multiply this by the net realizable value for this product, which is 1,922,000. Multiply this by 1,922,000, and we divide this by the total of 6,042,800. 6,042,800. $4,296,000 times this by 1,922,000 divide by 6,042,800. 42,800. This is 1,366,405. So now this will be how the joint costs have been allocated to the two products. Remember, we allocate them using the net realizable value method. And the question is, how do we get the net realizable value, or what is the net realizable value? It is the sales value minus further processing cost. We get to the net. And here is our sales value, and here is our net realizable value. This gives us our net realizable value. Therefore, now we take the total of the two, we add the two figures, they give us the total of the net realizable value, which will be the base of allocation, meaning the amount that we divide with. So now we take the amount of the net realizable value, which is 4,120,800, divide by the total times by the amount of the joint cost. So this is how this method is done. Please be mindful, it's a very important method, but I still have to do another method in terms of allocating joint cost. That is also very important to note. So now that I have allocated the joint cost, then from now I can do the income statement. Let me do the income statement. I was just doing the workings above. Income statement. And remember, income statement is for the two products. Is maize. And the next product is shop. Remember, they said we must also provide the column for the totals. So I must try to limit my space as much as I can. So now these are the two products that we have and the total column. First thing that we start with, income statement start with sales. Income statement starts with sales. So now we have recorded the sales. And we know that our sales were already calculated as 4,272,000. So as I said to you previously, just to recap, the amount of sales here is based on the total units that were processed, 480. Even if they gave you the number of units that were sold, stick to the units that were manufactured or the units that were processed, not the one that were sold. But when you do the income statement, you base your sales on the number of units that were sold. But in this case, all that was manufactured is assumed to be all sold. So it becomes 4,272,000. 4,272,000 rands. Then the second sales were given to us as, or we calculated as 1,932,000. 1,932,000 rands. So our total will be 1,932,000 plus 4,272,000, and this gives us a total of 6,204,000. 6,204,000 rands. Then after we have to less our variable cost, we have to less our variable cost. Remember, our variable costs are made of joint cost, and we have already calculated our joint cost, and we know that the total of the adjusted joint cost is 4,296,000. That is just at the total column, 4,296,000 rands. And joint costs that were allocated to product maize meal were 2,929,595. It was 2,929,595. And the second one was allocated as 1,366,405. And the total will obviously have to come to 4,296,000 rands. Then after we had further processing costs, further processing cost, and further processing cost was 151,200, and here it was 9,800. I think my memory still serves me on this one. 9,000, it was 9.6 or 9.8. Just confirm, yes, 9.8. And another one was yes, 151,200 further processing cost, and this one is 9,800. So I was right on that. 9,800 plus 151,200. So the total will be 161,000 rands. So that will be the total column for the further processing cost. And remember, all these costs are variable cost. None of them are fixed. They include everything. So now we have to add those. We say 2,929,595 plus 151,200. So this gives us the variable cost of 308,795. 308,795 and 1,366,405 plus 9,800, and this gives us a total of 1,376,205 minus 1,932,000. This gives us a total of 555,795. Gave us 555,795. This one is 4,272,000 minus 3,080,795. It gives me a total of 1,191,205. And I add the 2 plus 555,595. It gives me 1,746,800. 1,746,800. Just to confirm, we have 1,191,205 plus 555,795 is 1,747,000. Okay, not 46. 1,747,800. So now this will be our contribution. In other words, sales minus variable cost always gives us contribution. It gives us what we call contribution. Contribution. Then after, now we need to deduct our fixed cost. Okay, I still have to add all the variable cost there, which is the variable cost 308,795 plus 1,376,205, and this gives a total of negative 4,457,000 minus 6,204 okay. If we go down that side, that becomes 7, the correct figure 1,474,000. 747,000. So now that will be the correct figure. Then after we add our fixed cost, less fixed cost, our fixed costs were given to us, and there were two of them. Fixed costs were given to us. It was fixed manufacturing overheads. Then we have overheads. And our fixed overheads are not given for each product, are just given in total. It is 200,000 rands in total. Then we have selling and administration costs that are fixed, 20,000. So we have to say selling plus admin cost for 20,000. For 20,000. So meaning our total fixed cost will be 200,000 plus 20,000. Therefore now our fixed cost becomes 220,000. 220,000 minus 1,747,000. This gives us a total of the net profit, and this net profit is a total of 1,527,000. 1,527,000, and this becomes the net profit. This becomes the net profit. Now this is what was required in this income statement. Very important to take note of this net realizable value method. So now we have taken into account all that was required. Then in the second requirement, which was number B, this was requirement number B. And requirement number B started from very, very far, because we needed this figure, we also needed this figure, and we also needed the further processing cost, which we calculated as our further processing cost. We needed that, and we also needed the joint cost that we allocated. And this chapter is very important to master how to calculate or how to allocate the joint cost. So now we are done with that. Then we go to the next question. And the next requirement is requirement number last, which is number C. Number C requires us to calculate the fixed manufacturing overheads per ton for the cow fat, poultry fat, and the bird fat using the activity-based costing. So now we are using ABC. Then obviously now we are on this part of the question, or this section of the question, where we deal with the activity-based costing. Now it says, Mr. Farmer Brown and the management team have decided to explain their operation by investing in an animal fat processing plant. This plant produces 3 types of animal fat, which is cow fat, CF, poultry fat, PF, and bird fat, BF. The company expects to produce 50,000 units of CF, 30,000 units of PF, and 25,000 units of bird fat. These budgeted units are equivalent to the company's annual production capacity. The management team is investigating the possibility of using activity-based costing for overheads allocation. An initial analysis of the budgeted fixed manufacturing overheads established the following relationships between the overheads and the activities. So now we are given the total fixed manufacturing overheads as 10 million, which is divided into different activity drivers. And they gave us in the middle column the notes number 1, number 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. So now 1.1 will go with 1.1, 1.2 continuously. Just like that. Easy approach. They've given us everything, so we know where to go. So now they say under 1.1, we take note we only have 4 cost drivers or activity drivers. So now, meaning I will just be doing that in this where we have 3 products, and those 3 products are, I just want to ensure the names of the products. We have CF, PF, and BF. We have CF, PF, and BF. These are the 3 products that we will be allocating fixed cost for. And we'll allocate according to the instruction that we are given. I will do my workings on the other page, then after I will just go and paste the figures. Then it says that under 1.1, the fat are produced in production runs. Take note. The fat are produced in production runs, so we need to know the number of production runs. CF production run contain 500 units. Remember, a run is more like a batch, in other words. Meaning they produce the PF product in batches of 500 units. This becomes 1 production run. The question is how many units were manufactured, because we need to know how many units were manufactured in order for us to know how many runs were there. They told us that PF manufactured 50,000, PF 30,000, BF 25,000 units. So now we'll be using the number of units because the runs are based on the number of units. 500 units, and PF is 150 units, and BF is 200 units. So now we need to know the number of production runs. So we need to know the number of production runs. The minute we know the number of production runs for PF, which is 50,000 units, divide this by 500. I think it was 500 units per production run. Yes, 500, 150, and 200. So it will be PF second one is CF, PF, and BF. We have CF, PF, and BF. Okay, so this is CF, cow fat, PF, and BF. This was 30,000. Divide by 150. This is 25,000. Divide this by 200. 50,000 divided by 500 is 100 runs. 30,000 divided by 150 is 200. 25,000 divided by 200 is 125. So we have 125 plus 300 is 410. 25. These are the total runs. 425 runs. 425 runs. Then after now we have to allocate the fixed cost, and that fixed cost that goes with the number of runs is the 6,460,000, which is the number of production runs. So now we have to allocate using the number of production runs, which is production runs. So now we are allocating this to each of the product. Allocation of the cost of production run. We allocate to CF, and it is 6,460,000. 460,000 times this by 100, divide this by 425. Then we have PF, 6,460,000 times this by 200, divide by 425. We have BF, which is 6,460,000 times by 125, divide by 425. So now we do the allocation. 100 divided by 425 times by 6,460,000. It is 1,000,000 1,520,000 was 1,519,000.98, so that will be 520,000. Then after we have 200 divided by 425 times this by 6,460,000, which is 3,040,000. 3,040,000, which is 3,039,000 become 3,040,000. The next one is 125 divided by 425 equals times 6,460,000, which is 1,900,000 because it's 899. 1,900,000. So I can just go and allocate 1,520,000 and production runs 1,520,000. Second one is 3,040,000. The last one was 1,900,000. I took those figures and I pasted now to the total, to the columns. Remember, the sum of the three must give you 6,460,000 because that's what you are allocating. So now we have done the first allocation and we go to the second one. 1.2 says to us that 1.2 says the division's production process is predominantly performed by machines. The machine time produced each unit of fed is 30 minutes, which is CF, 15 minutes of PF, and 6 minutes of BF. So now we have to convert the units into minutes. Then we need the number of machine hours. We need the number of machine hours. We need the number of machine hours. For product CF, which they manufacture 50,000 times by 30 minutes over 60 minutes. Then this will give us time. Product PF, which is 30,000 units that they budget to manufacture, times by 15 minutes out of 60 minutes. And product BF, they manufacture, or they estimate to manufacture 25,000, times that by 6 out of 60 minutes. Then let us calculate the time that is required, just to confirm that it was all the time that I've given to you. First one is 30 minutes, half an hour, 15 minutes. Another one is 6 minutes. And remember the number of units that were manufactured. Don't forget that. For product CF, it was 50,000, 30,000 PF, and 25,000 for product BF. So we need the number of time it took for them to complete these units. 50,000 times by 0.5 will give us 25,000 hours. Another one will be 0.25 times by 30,000. It will be 7,500 hours. Then the next one will be 25,000 times by 6 over 60. It will be 2,500. So now after that we need to determine the total hours for all these three products. Total hours for all these three products. 2,500 plus 7,500 plus 25,000, which is 35,000 hours, are the total hours that would have been required to manufacture the three products. 25,000 15 over 60 times 30,000, 7.5, 6 over 60 times by 25,000, 2.5. So now these are the total hours that are required. Then we need to do the allocation. And the allocation will be machine hours, and here we'll have machine hours again. Cost based on machine hours. For product CF, let's look at the cost. Machine hours, 1,575,000. It is 1,575,000. divide this by 35,000 hours times this by 25,000 hours. 25,000 divided by 35,000 times 1,575,000. It gives 1,124,000. Oh, 125,000 exactly. 1,125,000 rounded off. Second one, product PF, 1,575,000 divided by the total hours times by 7.5 hours for the product PF. 7,500 divided by 35,000 hours times by 1,575,000. It is 337,500. Rounded off. Take note, I'm rounding off in everything in this case. BF, we have 1,575,000 times by 2,500 divided by 35,000 total hours. I'm changing the calculations up and down because at the end of the day we're doing the same thing. 2,500 divided by 35,000 times by 1,575,000, which gives me 112,500. 112,500. So it's 112,500. The second one was 337,500. 337,500. $337,500. The last one, 1,125,000. 1,125,000. So we have allocated the second one using the activity-based costing, which is ABC. Then we proceed to the next allocation of our overheads, which is the third one just before the last one. It says number of purchase orders, and that is 1.3, and we go straight to 1.3. The budget assumes a total of 20 working days for the month. Direct raw material purchase orders as per just-in-time schedule will be placed every third working day for PF, every fifth working day for PF, and every 8th working day for BF. Is every third day for CF, every fifth day. Remember, they said there are 20 working days. Then the question is, how many times does 3 go to 20? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So it will be 6 times. So we are looking for the number of days, or number of orders, in fact, not number of days. We know that is 20 days. For product CF, it will be 6, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. It will be 6. For product PF, they said 5 times, it will be 5, 10, 15, 20, 4 times. Then for product BF, 8 times 816, that means it will be 2 times 8 times. How many times does 8 go to 22 times 816? Then we don't take the remainder because we only order on the 8th day. So it will be 2 times 6, 10, 12. So now the number of orders will be total as 12 orders. Then after we do the allocation, and in the allocation we say CF is 6/12 times that by the cost, and the cost of ordering is 828,000. Cost of ordering is 828,000. Product PF, it is 4/12 times by 828,000, and product BF, it is 2/12 times this by the cost of 828,000. The cost is 828,000 that we are allocating. Then after we say 6/12, which is half, times by 828, this gives us 414,000. Then after we have 4/12 times 828,000, this gives us a total of 276,000, rounding off to the whole number, 276,000. The last one, 2/12 times by 828,000, this is 138,000. So I want to emphasize on this very important part. Remember the reason why here I said 6. Remember it was 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So now on the 18th day, we still have stock available. So on the 20th, we will not do an order, but on the 21st day, there will be another order. But remember, there are only 20 days that the company is working. So hence, we don't take into account the remainder. If you want, you can write numbers 1 up to 20, then every 30, then count how many 3's goes to 20. It will be 6 times. So now we have 414,000, which is purchase orders. Purchase orders. Our purchase orders, 414,000. The second one was 276,000, if not mistaken, yes. Another one, 138,000. 276,000. Another one was 138,000. So now we go to the last allocation. The last allocation is the allocation of the quality inspection, which is the number of quality inspection. The amount is 1,137,000. They say quality inspection occur as follows. Every 1,000 units of CF inspection takes place. Every 200 units of PF inspection takes place. Every 250 units of BF inspection takes place. So now we need to know the number of inspections. So we need to know the number of inspections. We need to know the number of inspections. Number of inspections. How many times do we inspect? For product CF, we know that every 1,000 units we inspect. So 50,000 units that were manufactured, divide by 1000. 50,000 divide that by 1000 will give us 50 times inspection will take place. We have 30,000 for the second product, and inspection occur every 200. The next one is 250. Every 200 units we do the inspection. So it will be 30,000. Divide this by 200. It becomes 150 number of inspection. Product BF, we have 25,000, and every 250 units of production of units BF we do an inspection. So now from here it will be 25,000 divided by 250, which becomes 100. So now the number of inspection will be 300 inspections. 150 plus 150 will be 300. Then after we do the allocation of the cost based on the number of inspections. So now we have product CF, which is 50 divided by 300 times this by 1,310 something. 1,137,000. Okay. 1,137,000. Then the second one is product PF, which is 150 over 300. This will give us half, 1,137,000. Product BF, it is 100 divided by total inspection, times this by 1,137,000. Then after we calculate the figures, first one is 100 or is 50 over 300 times by 1,137,000. It is 1,810 or 1,089,500 or 189,500, not a million. 189,500. 500. Next one, 150 divided by 300 times by 1,137,000, which is 50. 568,500. 568,500. 100 divided by 300 times by 1,137,000 is 379,000, rounded off to the whole number. 379,000. So now this will be the final allocation. 189,500 is the first one, which is quality inspection. Quality inspection, 189,500. This one was 568,500. 510, 68,500, and the last one is 379,000. Last one is 379,000. The total will have to be 10 million at the end of the day, the amount that we were allocating. That will be the total, or I did not provide the total column, but if there was a total column, then the total will have to be 10 million. So the last column, it is 2,529,500. For product PF, it is 4,222,000. And the first product is 3,248,500. So now remember, we were required to calculate our total cost, and the total cost was required to be, not sure either per unit or not. Calculate the fixed overhead per unit for the cow fat poultry, so it's supposed to be per unit. So now the cost that we have here will have to be divided by 50,000, divide here by 30,000, and divide here by 25,000. And by doing so, it will be 3,248,500 divide by 50,000. So that will mean we will get to, okay, there is no space that I've provided. So that will mean it will be 64.97. 64 and cost per unit. And the second one will be 4,222,000 divided by 30,000, 140.73. 140.73, just to make sure that I do as instructed. The next one will be 2,529,500 divided by 25,000. Cost per unit would have to be 101.18. So this will be the final part of this question, and I hope you have understood something out of this long workings that I've done for you. And I want to go back to this part. This is very important to note, and it's not an easy topic, but thank you. If you have any question, please, you are more than welcome to contact me. Go to my Facebook, you'll find my contact details, or else you can just go to my LinkedIn account, you'll get all my details there. Thank you.